Okay, so here we are with the last of the four Justice League Task Force unboxings from Mcfarlane, DC Multiverse. And this is Aquaman. You can see there's that 80s Justice League logo, Task Force. This is based on the old video game from the 90s that was on the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo. I didn't have a Super Nintendo, so I played it on the Sega Genesis. But and the last of our Build-A-Figure pieces, the head and fists of Darkseid. There's what the back looks like. We've been over this on the previous videos, so if you want to see me talk a little more in depth about this, check out the video on the Flash. But you should have probably already watched all of these anyway by now, right? This is like the fourth one, so you should have already seen the previous three. So hopefully there's not too much spoileriness about it. Like I've pointed out before, this is a unique packaging design, which I always appreciate. So let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and get it opened up. So Aquaman has a big old head of hair. Hi, Aunt June. Always nice to see my Aunt June. So there we go. Man, look at that mane. Something already fell out of the package. What was it? It's one of Darkseid's fists. We don't want to lose that, do we? So I'm going to go ahead and set that aside. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and take the other fist out of here. Since it's not like held in with any kind of rubber band or tape, it just fell right out. That's probably something that could have used a rubber band, but they didn't use one. And then Darkseid's head went somewhere. Did not want to stay in my hand. Just popped right out. Where did it go? I figured it would have gone in the big box of stuff down here. Here we go. So there's Darkseid's head, and then the other two other three accessories. I'm forgetting one. You got the two fist flash things. We'll go ahead and set those aside, and then of course Aquaman has his trident, which only has 3 prongs on it, because everybody whined that the trident in the Zack Snyder movies is not a trident because it has like 5 prongs on it, even though Aquaman's trident always had 5 prongs on it in the comic books. Snyder was actually accurate to the comic books, and we can't have nice things because everybody's got to whine about Zack Snyder. All right, so there we go with the hold his hand off. But yeah, here's the trident, and we can see that this trident is unlike the version of it that came with the Rebirth Aquaman figure that I've already opened, and this is mostly a Rebirth repaint. I was about to say a Rebirth of repaint, but whatever. It's a repaint of the Rebirth Aquaman again. This is, instead of gold, it's a very bright yellow. And they also repainted this Aquaman for the Silver Age Aquaman from the Mcfarlane Digital, but I don't have that one yet. I'll try to get it sometime, but it's not really very high priority for me since, like I said, I already have the Rebirth version, and really the only reason I would want to buy a new version is so I could have a classic style head. And I wasn't that impressed with the head on that figure, honestly. But I probably will buy it eventually just so I can talk about it on this show. Flashing and oh yeah, all over the place. So here we go. So Aquaman, much like in the comic book around this time, has lost his hand. So yeah, this would have been Aquaman right before the Peter David era. Peter David having one of the more successful runs on Aquaman, I think. And right before that era, he hadn't grown his beard yet. This, to me, actually most looks like the very beginning of the Peter David era on Aquaman. The first thing he wrote on Aquaman was a miniseries called Time and Tide. And if you look at the image of Aquaman on the cover of Time and Tide, you'll see his hair looks actually kind of similar to how it is here. It's like an underwater kind of effect they tried to give it. Pop this hand back onto him. And I'm going to take the trident out of his hand for now. So yeah, very very accurate to how he was drawn in that particular miniseries. You know, I noticed that he also has a more classic style belt, and that makes me think maybe the Silver Age figure had that more classic style belt too. That might be another reason for me to pick that up. So I might have to finally stop dragging my feet on that one. But let's set Aquaman aside for the moment because we've got something else we got to take care of. We got to finish putting together Darkseid. So let's go ahead and pop the head on first, so I don't lose that again. And it's on a ball joint. It's a very tight fit. Not quite wanting to go on there all the way. Probably because it's bumping up against the collarbone there because of the way the head is jointed. Come on, you. Oh, don't be a pain. There we go. And then he's got the two fists. Now, like I said, this is a repaint of the classic style Darkseid. I think it was just DC Classic is what they called it. So we'll have a look and compare in a minute. But one of the differences that I will point out immediately is that unfortunately, Darkseid does not have the extra head that the classic version had. Oh, you're going to be a pain, aren't you? Let's try this other fist first. It's not wanting to pop in very easily. Man, that is tough. All right, you're forcing me to get out the big guns here. And you guys know I don't like to use the hairdryer on the show because it's too noisy. But it's leaving me no choice. So we're going to soften his wrists up a little bit with the hairdryer. And hopefully that'll make it so that his fists can pop in a little more easily. So just like, you know, hit it with the hairdryer for like 20 or 30 seconds. That should be plenty of time. All right. And that should hopefully soften it up, but we can pop it right in. There we go. All right. Easy peasy. That's in there now. And now let's move on to the second one. All right, so that should be softened up enough. Oh man, I realized I was super gluing something earlier. I forgot to put the cap back on. I just saw that. So pardon me one moment while I put the cap back on the super glue because I don't want my super glue to dry out. It's Gorilla Glue. So Gorilla Glue super glue. And here we have the most evil villain of all time in all of his glory. And you can see he's got some excuse me, some highlights painted on here and there, like on the gauntlets and on the scalp heater. Yeah. I've heated some scalps with it before if I got to take somebody's hair off. So you know, the highlights on the tops of the boots and on the calves and on the torso. He's got all those kind of you know, pixelated kind of shading effects that they gave him. I think it works out pretty well on Darkseid personally. I think it works out well on Aquaman too. Like I said, the one place it really bugs me is, but you can see it brings out the scales really nicely on him. The one thing that it really bugs me on would be the emblems, how they made the emblems all pixelated. And I think that they probably should have just, you know, given us clean versions of the emblems. I think that would have been better. But Aquaman does not have that problem because his emblem is on his belt buckle and it's sculpted in. So you don't have to worry about any pixelation on the belt buckle. Although it does kind of surprise me they didn't put any pixelated shading on the belt because they did that with Batman and with Superman with their belts. But Aquaman's is just plain yellow plastic. But you can see he's also got that pixelated shading on his pants. He doesn't have black trunks because they ditched the black trunks in the Time and Tide miniseries. So I don't know if they ditched him at any point before that or not, but that's where I remember noticing, oh, he doesn't have the black trunks anymore. Probably one of the first superheroes where they got rid of his trunks. I think that might have been one of the first. So that's interesting. All right, let's get back to Darkseid for just a second. We'll go over him real quick. Now, if you want like a review of the articulation of Darkseid and everything, like I said, Maybe that's why he got rid of the black trunks. maybe they were dirty. I don't know. But I already talked about all the articulation and everything on the review of the previous Darkseid figure. It's the same exact figure. Go back and watch that one if you haven't already. But I don't want to spend too much time talking about Darkseid because it's really more of a review of the Aquaman figure. But I did want to show both of them next to each other so you can see the difference. Obviously, the Task Force version of Darkseid is much darker, and he's got the pixelated shading, and that's the main differences. Something else I wanted to point out is one of my criticisms of this Darkseid figure was he had that kind of rough edge at the top of his belt, and they seem to have fixed that with the Justice League Task Force version. His belt is pretty smooth at the top. I heard some people say that they preferred this version of Darkseid to the classic version, and I can see why. I think it more has to do with like the darker tones of the figure. You know, see like most of his tunic and helmet and boots and gloves are a very, very dark blue, and then he's got kind of like this kind of lavender purplish hue for the highlights. But the overall effect is that he's like wearing this dark blue, somewhat purplish kind of outfit. I do think they made his skin maybe a little too dark compared to how Darkseid is in the comics. And maybe if they'd have done like some lighter gray highlights on that, the same way they did the lighter highlights on the blue portions of the figure, I think that might have helped that somewhat. I might try to dry brush or maybe dab on with a sponge some lighter gray paint and see if that helps bring out his skin a little more. But yeah, you can see both. I'm happy to have both versions. Both versions are really cool. I do wish that they'd have supplied an extra head with the Omega effect for this guy. But, you know, can't win them all. But Darkseid's pretty cool. Definitely worth getting all four of those figures to put them together. I was hoping that we'd see Darkseid as a Build-A-Figure at some point without the cape clasp being permanently attached. That's obviously the main difference on the torso. I'm not sure if it's entirely a different torso or if they just glued that piece on, but neither would really surprise me. All right, so let's move on to Aquaman himself. And like I said, got like this intense mane of hair. Like this is a guy who actually would need a hair dryer for hair purposes. But let's talk about his articulation. Aquaman can look up about that far, look down about that far, tilt his head kind of quizzically from side to side, rotate the head all the way around. Of course, the arms rotate all the way around to the shoulders, and he's got butterfly joints, which move back about that far, forward about that far. They can move up and down a little bit. He's got the cool Mcfarlane articulation at the torso, so we can get all kinds of cool poses out of him. Let's try to get him into a swimming pose right now. So, yeah. Well, that works for a swing pose, doesn't it? So, yeah, he's got, of course, a bicep swivel, so the bicep rotates all the way around. He's got double jointed elbows. That is about the range of motion you get at the elbows. He's got the cool Mcfarlane wrist articulation, so the wrists rotate all the way around, move up and down, that way. And of course, since it's jointed both at where the wrist meets the hand and where the wrist meets the forearm. So that means you've got like an incredible range of motion on the wrists and can get the wrists in pretty much any kind of position you want to get them into. So that's good. I like that. I always love the Mcfarlane wrist articulation and ankle articulation. We'll get to that in a minute. Since this is an older figure, it looks like the wrists are the wrist joints are just plain kind of spheres without much detailing into them. But they did put a little bit of effort into the ankles, so that's good. All right, so where was I? Oh yeah, Aquaman can kick up about that far, about 90 degrees. He's got double jointed knees. That's about the range of motion you get at the knees. And he does not have a boot cut. He doesn't have boots anyway. But since he does have that cool Mcfarlane ankle articulation, you can pretty much twist these ankles around any which way you want. So he doesn't really need a boot cut. But yeah, that's fine. And then, of course, like I pointed out before, Aquaman has a trident as an accessory, and even though he doesn't come with any extra hands, both of his hands are gripping hands, so we should be able to get him into a two-handed position, holding this trident very easily. I'm just going to slip it in at the top. And then at the bottom over here. And then we can get him into a kind of two-handed battle grip. He did have the trident in the video game, and he could do some pretty cool moves with it. So there we go. And you can see, unfortunately, it's a little bit warped, but I'll be able to fix that with the hairdryer later. But yeah, he looks pretty cool. He does have that kind of lipstick thing going on that Superman had, where they kind of made the lips a little too voluptuous and red. They probably could have picked a tone a little closer to his skin, but it's not quite as bad as with Superman. Like with Superman, it literally looks like he's wearing lipstick, and this guy looks like, he just got rosy lips, but they're a little more sort of a natural color. But yeah, pretty cool figure. If you don't already have the Rebirth figure and you don't already have the Silver Age Aquaman figure, like, this is a pretty good comic book version of Aquaman. And I think that of all the figures that have that pixelated shading to them, I think Aquaman is actually the one that it works out the best on, because it looks really good on his scales. And like honestly, from the waist up, this could just be like a good comic book style Aquaman. Like, even with the pixelated shading, it works with the scales really well. And he does have it on his legs, but I kind of feel like it's at least a little bit more subtle than it was on Superman, and works out pretty well. So not quite as subtle as the pixelated shading on the Flash, but not as extreme as what we saw on Superman. Now, that having been said, is Aquaman the best figure in this line? I'm still kind of leaning towards Batman. But if he has any advantage over Batman, it's that Batman has that pixelated emblem. And like I said, I think like a cleaner emblem would have been a better choice. Lone Dragon says, what are you opening Mcfarlane live with Murray Franklin? Oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to get that one. That one's like way expensive. So yeah, like that one's like God, it's like $250 for the whole set. And I get why it's expensive. It has to do with like a whole licensing thing, and Warner Brothers wouldn't really let them do a Joker set for less, like not from that movie. For like they want it to be an adult only collectible. They don't want any kids to have toys from that movie. That's the thing, that like that's why that's so expensive. So it's not really even McFarlane's fault. It's a Warner Brothers thing. So unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to pick up that Joker and Murray Franklin set, but it does look pretty cool. I think it's a little expensive for what it is. Like if it was $100 even, I'd probably pick it up. So maybe if the thing sells poorly enough that they wind up selling it at a discount at some point in the future, maybe then I'll be able to get it. But I'm outlook not so good, says the Magic 8-Ball. We'll put it that way. So yeah, he's a pretty nice Aquaman, Aunt June. He worked out pretty well. So I like this figure decently enough. I think that they, it's if I'm being honest, like since it is the Rebirth version of Aquaman, it's a little more modern than it should be, and not quite as Silver Age as it should. Yeah, they kind of left all the extra stuff out of it, but like I said, I'm pretty sure that the reason that set is so expensive in the first place is because Warner Brothers doesn't want like children's toys being made out of that movie because of like how controversial that movie was. And honestly, the controversy was like way overblown. Like people were worried, oh, there's going to be like shootings in the theater because it's going to be so extreme. It's such an incel movie, and it's like, nah, it wasn't really that at all. It was. Have you ever seen King of Comedy, the old Scorsese movie? Oddly enough, with Robert De Niro in it. I'm pretty sure that's not a coincidence. Very much an homage to King of Comedy. Like, a lot of people compared Joker to Taxi Driver, and there definitely are some parallels to Taxi Driver. But really, I think that the Scorsese movie that Joker is closest to is King of Comedy. And King of Comedy is actually one of my favorite movies that Scorsese did. And it's not one that's quite as well known as, like, say, Goodfellas or Raging Bull or something like that. But, I remember when it came out, I saw it when I was a kid, and it was on HBO or Showtime or something like that. And I was hooked. I loved that movie, even as a kid. Like, and that's not a movie that's made for kids either. But like, I think that was the first movie I ever saw Robert De Niro in, actually. But yeah, it's like it makes me think of network. Yeah, I'm mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take it anymore. But like I said, I can't be too mad at McFarlane for that. I'm pretty sure that's a Warner Brothers thing, and that was the only way they were going to be able to make that figure made in the first place. So, and they probably figured, well, we've got a new Joker movie coming out, and obviously that's going to be a huge hit. Yeah, I still haven't seen the new Joker movie. So, from what I heard about it, I was like, yeah, maybe I'll just skip that one. Maybe I should just be happy with the first one and just enjoy that for what it's worth. So anyway, I think that's pretty much it for Aquaman. I think that's everything I had to say about this figure. It's a nice figure. It's worth getting if like I said, especially if you don't already have like a classic Aquaman. This is a good one to do to fill that void. If you want to get Darkseid, obviously you're gonna have to get Aquaman because it's where the head and the hands come from. You got to get all four of these figures to put together Darkseid, and Darkseid is awesome. If you weren't able to get the classic Darkseid, here's another shot to get them. So, but you're gonna have to get all the rest of these figures too. Now, I know the pixelated shading on these figures is not going to be every guy's cup of tea. This is definitely more of a niche item. A set of figures that's made for a very select group of the fandom. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people out here where it's like, oh, well, cool, it's more Justice League figures, and don't really care whether it's got that pixelated shading to it or not. But this was not like I've pointed out before. This was not like a hugely popular video game at the time. I remember playing it, and I enjoyed playing it, but I was just excited to be able to play as some of my favorite superheroes. That was the main thing. It was, kind of just like a average sort of fighting game. There wasn't really that much to recommend it beyond that, I think. But I think that McFarlane mainly just like saw a lot of the kind of retro gaming type figures with the sort of pixel shading and said, hey, we can do that. Let's look into what kind of video games we got to do that with. And most of the old video games from that time were either, Batman or Superman. And this was one where they actually got to do like a bunch of characters. If it's successful enough, I would like to try to see them do, or see them try to do the Green Arrow and Wonder Woman in this style, because I would want to complete the whole Justice League team that's in that video game. And they could probably just, use the comic book style Wonder Woman and the Longbow Hunters Green Arrow figure that they already have and just kind of do the repaint with that. I think that would work out pretty well. But I think these figures are really nice, and they'll look really cool when they're all together, I think. So that definitely makes them worth picking up for this collector. It might not be your cup of tea. Like I said, it's a niche product, but if it is your cup of tea, you're gonna enjoy it to the last drop. That's all I got to say about that. Anyway, that's it for this episode. I've got like so much stuff to open up from stuff that I've gotten recently. So next episode, probably tomorrow, I'm gonna go ahead and open up the Nightmare version of Batman, Nightmare with a K, and we can see that cool, unique design that they made for the Dawn of Justice figures, the Batman v Superman. They actually put some effort into that, which I really like. So that'll be what I open up next time. So if you want to make sure you don't miss that, make sure you like and subscribe. All the fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about Aquaman, both the character in general and this figure specifically, and any thoughts you have about the old Justice League Task Force game would probably be welcome too. So yeah, next time I'm going to open up Nightmare Batman, and then I think next week I'm probably going to move on to opening up the Superpowers figures that I have. So make sure you don't miss that. All right. Thanks everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.